I'm walking through the front door after an 8-hour shift at the hardware store, holding a chocolate cake I bought myself from the grocery store bakery. Cost me $6. Had happy birthday written in blue frosting that was already smearing from the heat. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My parents, Patricia and Dennis, were sitting in the living room with my sister, Haley, like some kind of intervention setup. The second I walked in, my mom looked up with this expression I'd come to dread. It was a mask of practiced disappointment, a familiar cocktail of pity and accusation she reserved just for me. Haley was nestled between them, her shoulders shaking with pristine, theatrical sobs. "Alex," my dad, Dennis, said. His voice was heavy, the sound of a judge about to pass a sentence he'd already decided on. I felt a dull, familiar ache start in my gut. I placed the flimsy cardboard box with my sad little cake on the entryway table. "What is it this time?" I asked, my voice flatter than I intended. The exhaustion from my shift was a physical weight, but this new, impending drama was a soul-crushing one. My mom, Patricia, gestured to Haley. "Your sister is very upset. Something happened today." "I'm sure she is," I said, looking at Haley. Her tear-streaked face was a masterpiece of contrived misery. She wouldn't meet my eyes, which was always the first tell. "Don't use that tone, Alex," my dad warned. "She came to us because she didn't know what else to do. She's missing money. $60 from her purse." I just stared. $60. It was always a specific, believable amount. Not so much that it was a grand felony, but just enough to be a serious betrayal. Just enough to be exactly what my birthday dinner at a decent restaurant would cost for the four of us tomorrow. "Okay," I said slowly, my brain connecting the dots in a pattern so worn it was practically a trench. "And you think I took it?" Haley let out a gut-wrenching sob, burying her face in my mother's shoulder. "I don't want to think it," she wailed, her voice a carefully constructed tremor. "But you were the only one home when I went for my run. I saw you near my room when I left. I needed that for my anxiety medication copay." The masterstroke, tying it to her health. It made any denial from me seem monstrous, like I was not only a thief, but also a heartless ghoul jeopardizing her well-being. My parents' faces hardened. I was no longer just their son. I was a threat to their fragile, golden child. "Alex, did you?" my mom asked, her voice laced with a sliver of hope that I would just confess, make it easy, and fall on the sword like I always did. I thought about the years of this exact scene, playing out with different props and different accusations, but always in the days leading up to my birthday. My 10th birthday, a pool party was planned. The day before, Haley had a sudden, crippling migraine that she claimed was from the stress of me being too loud and aggressive all week. The party was canceled. My parents spent the day coddling her in a dark room. I spent my birthday in silence, told to be more considerate. My 16th birthday, I'd finally gotten my driver's license, and my friends and I were going to a concert. The night before, Haley accidentally tripped and fell down a few steps, claiming I'd left my skateboard at the top of the stairs. It was in the garage, right where it always was. But the ensuing drama, the trip to the emergency room for a sprained ankle that miraculously healed in 2 days, the accusations of my carelessness, it all culminated in me being grounded. No concert. My dad said it was about responsibility. My 18th, the big one. My parents had booked a table at a fancy steakhouse. 2 days before, a locket my grandmother had given Haley went missing. She tore her room apart, crying that it was the most precious thing she owned. She didn't accuse me directly, not at first. She just kept saying she'd last seen it on her dresser before I'd gone in her room to borrow a phone charger. I hadn't been in her room all week. The dinner was canceled, replaced by a tense, silent house search. A week later, my mom found the locket tangled in a scarf in the back of Haley's own closet. There was no apology, just a quiet, "Oh, here it is," and a collective, unspoken agreement to never mention it again. Each time, I was left standing in the wreckage of my own celebration, made to feel selfish for even wanting one. And each time, they'd look at me with that same expression, a deep, weary disappointment that I was, once again, the source of the family's turmoil. Now, at 21, I was looking at the same play with the same actors. But something inside me had finally snapped. It was the sight of the cheap chocolate cake on the table, the smeared blue frosting, the $6 I'd spent on myself because I knew, deep down, that no one else would. I had already conceded defeat before the battle even began, and they still weren't satisfied. They needed to crush even that tiny, pathetic gesture of self-worth. "No," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I didn't take her money. Alex, just tell us the truth," my dad pleaded, his voice softening into a manipulative gentleness. "We can deal with it. If you're in some kind of trouble, we can help." "The only trouble I'm in," I said, looking from my father's earnest, misguided face to my mother's pained one, "is being born into this family." The words hung in the air, heavier than any accusation of theft. My mother flinched as if I'd slapped her. Haley's sobs hitched, her performance momentarily disrupted by the unscripted line. "That is a horrible thing to say," my mother whispered, her eyes welling with genuine tears for the first time. "But they weren't for me. They were for her own wounded sensibilities." "Is it?" I countered, a cold fire starting to burn through the exhaustion. For years, every single time my birthday comes around, Haley pulls a stunt like this. She fakes an illness, stages an accident, loses something precious, and now it's stealing. And every single time, you two cancel whatever was planned for me to cater to her. You don't even question it. You just cancel my life for a day to make her the star of another drama. "That's not true," Patricia cried. "Your sister has always been sensitive. She needs our support." "She's not sensitive, Mom. She's a saboteur. And you're her willing accomplices," I said, my voice rising. "Look at her. She's been crying for what, an hour? And there's not a single red mark on her face. It's a performance. It always has been." Haley looked up, her face a mask of pure indignation. The victimhood was gone, replaced by a flash of cold fury. I'd seen it. I'd finally broken through the facade. My dad stood up. "That's enough, Alex. You will not speak to your mother and sister that way. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this behavior is unacceptable. Your birthday dinner for tomorrow is, of course, canceled. We can't celebrate under these circumstances. Your mother and I are going to take Haley to the coast for the weekend. She clearly needs to get away from this hostility." The words hit me like a physical blow. They weren't just canceling my birthday. They were rewarding my tormentor with a vacation. They were punishing me for a crime I didn't commit by removing themselves and validating her lies. It was the final, irrefutable piece of evidence. I was not their son. I was the family's scapegoat, the designated villain required to make Haley's victimhood shine brighter. I looked at them, the three of them united against me. My father, stern and righteous. My mother, heartbroken and enabling. My sister, peeking over our mother's shoulder, a tiny, triumphant smirk playing on her lips before she buried her face again. And I just let go. The anger, the frustration, the desperate need to be believed, it all evaporated. All that was left was a profound, hollow clarity. I couldn't win. I couldn't even fight. The only move left was to forfeit the game. "You're right," I said, my voice dropping back to that unnerving calm. "You can't celebrate under these circumstances." I turned, picked up the soft cardboard box, and walked past them towards the stairs. "Where are you going?" my dad called after me. "We're not done here." I didn't answer. I went up to my room, the room I'd grown up in, and looked around. It wasn't my room. It was a holding cell, a backdrop for a life that was never truly mine. I set the cake on my dresser. Then I pulled my duffel bag from the closet and started packing. A few pairs of jeans, all my t-shirts, my work uniforms, my toothbrush. I grabbed the cash I'd been saving from my job, about $800 tucked away in a book. I didn't take pictures. I didn't take mementos. I didn't want to carry any part of this house with me. From downstairs, I could hear their muffled voices. They were probably planning their trip, talking about which hotel to book, how to best comfort poor, traumatized Haley. They hadn't even noticed I was gone. I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked back downstairs. The house was quiet now. They must have gone into the kitchen. On the entryway table where I'd first put the cake, I pulled a pen from a junk drawer and found a notepad. I scribbled a few words. Asterisk, you were right. You can't celebrate under these circumstances. So I'm leaving. Don't look for me. Asterisk, I didn't sign it. They knew who it was from. I walked out the front door, leaving it unlocked. I got into my beat-up 10-year-old sedan, the one I'd bought with my own money. I tossed my bag in the passenger seat. Just as I was about to start the engine, I saw them. My parents and Haley, coming out the front door with overnight bags, heading for their pristine SUV. They didn't even glance in my direction. They were a perfect little family unit, off on an adventure born from a lie. I waited until their taillights disappeared down the street. The streetlights flickered on, casting a lonely, orange glow over the empty driveway. I was alone. Truly, utterly alone on the eve of my 21st birthday. I reached over and opened the cardboard box. The blue, happy birthday, was now just an illegible smear of sugar. I picked up a chunk of the frosting with my finger and tasted it. It was cheap, cloyingly sweet, and perfect. I started the car and pulled away from the curb, not looking back in the rearview mirror. I didn't know where I was going. Maybe west, toward the ocean they were driving to. Maybe I'd find a cheap motel for the night. As I drove, I picked up the cake and took a huge, messy bite. Chocolate and frosting and sadness and freedom, all at once. Tears started to stream down my face, hot and real. They weren't for the family I was losing, because I'd clearly never had one. They were for the boy who'd spent so many birthdays wishing for something that would never come. And they were for the man who was finally, blessedly, leaving him behind. It was the worst birthday of my life, and the first day of my real one.